We're ready to start. Okay, welcome everybody to the September PrAC meeting. And we'll go around and do introductions. My name is Tim West. I am the club president of Park and Rec Advisory Committee.
Tim Leonhardt, Parks and Rec Advisory Committee.
Steve Williams, Vice Chair of the PrAC Committee.
Joyce Gifford, community member.
And we have Emily and I can't see who else. Joy.
Emily Lisborg, PrAC member.
And Joey Knopf, also PrAC member.
Very good, welcome. All right, so the first order of business is to approve the minutes of June 22nd and July 26th. And is there any discussion on those minutes?
I was getting ready to pull them up here if we want to review at all.
Do you feel like there's a need to review the minutes before we approve them?
No, not unless the committee wants to.
You guys want to go ahead and look at those, or was it such a fine meeting, both in June and July?
I would love to make a motion to approve the minutes on June 22nd and July 26th.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We approved the minutes of both June and July in one fell swoop. Thank you very much. All right, next up is public comment. And do we have anybody from the audience that wanted to make a comment on anything? Nope. Kendall, did you want to bring up anything? No? Not yet. Okay.
Not yet.
All right. So we have a couple of presentations that are on the docket here. The Cayuse 5 Tribute Project presentation is on the top of the list. Morning.
I know.
I heard I had an hour. Is that right? I'll take Jared's time. Thank you. Good evening. I'm John Lewis. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Oregon City. And I am here to talk to you about the Cayuse 5 Tribute Project. We are pretty excited about this project and hope you are as well. It's been a long time in the coming, and we've got most of our ducks aligned, with the exception of really kind of bringing this to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. The project is in one of the parks, one of the city parks. So I'm assuming, as studious as I hear the Park and Rec Advisory Committee is, that you've seen the staff report and you've all gone through that. I don't want to repeat too much of it, but for the listening audience, I thought I'd take a few excerpts from that just to kind of talk through it with you and give you a chance to ask any questions. For the most part, we have a project that's ready to bid. We just really wanted to get, again, Tuesday night, we got HRB approval, and we're hoping to get Parks and Rec Advisory Committee approval tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and read the executive summary because it's well written and
John,
flows
if I
pretty
might
well.
interrupt.
Sure.
I'll bite HRB. Help me with HRB.
Historic Review Board.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
thank you.
if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time we've seen these documents.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the City Commission in 2021 set a goal to recognize and honor the 5 Cayuse ancestors who were executed in Oregon City on June 3rd, 1850, fulfilling historical promises made as far back as 1993 to memorialize the loss of the 5 Native prisoners. Referenced as the Cayuse 5. This project, in partnership with the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, is seeking to honor the 5 Cayuse men who were unjustly taken into custody, charged, and hanged in Oregon City. The choice for the tribute location is within the McLaughlin Promenade, adjacent to the existing path and near 2nd Street. The improvements consist of an ADA accessible soft path contained within basalt border stones matching the material and shapes of the promenade railing stones. Inside the soft path area, one two-sided interpretive sign describing the historical background of the event, and a large basalt memorial stone incorporating a bronze engraved plaque with a poem or prayer provided by the tribe. There's the background section, and the historical background is very interesting. If you haven't heard that story before or read that story before, I recommend you go through that. I'm not going to go through it tonight, but I will say the city staff have been working collaboratively with the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and the Umatilla Indian Reservation. City Commission's desire was for staff to first reach concurrence on a tribute site and design that would both honor the history of the Cayuse 5 and respect the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde's perspective with the Willamette Falls area as a long history of many important stories of the Native American people who lived in the area. The result is an agreement on the location of the tribute site, agreement on the site plan concepts, materials, agreement on the construction goals, and agreement on the soil disturbance monitoring requirements for the city and the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, or by the city and the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. The tribute will be in the existing public park adjacent to the McLaughlin Promenade, a site suggested by the city of Oregon City and agreed upon by the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation and the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. The site's proximity to places where the 5 Cayuse men were detained, tried, and hanged is of great importance to the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. The project will prioritize the use of local natural materials as well as respect for existing natural landscape features. The elements listed above will be accessible from the promenade according to ADA standards. There is, so the work that we did to try to find the site, get agreement on the site from both tribes, what the site consisted of in terms of a footprint, we had all that kind of at least conceptually figured out. And so once and really the big thing was getting consensus or buy-in from the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. So once we kind of got to that point, felt like, oh, we're good to go, but let's look at the reality of some of the grades, look at the reality of some of the features in the area, try to figure out what other problems might exist, how we get to the site for construction, all those kinds of things. And that's when we decided, well, those 2 trees there, while aged and looking very resilient, were awfully close to our project site. So we worked with an arborist to evaluate those 2 trees. And the initial, well, they were on that screen. If you could go back to that screen, I kind of like that because it was aligned with what I was talking about there. So we talked to them about, the initial response was, stay well away from these trees. And so we kind of went back to the drawing board, if you will, and tried to look at sites north and south of here, if the promenade is north and south, look at other areas and talk to the tribes who had both been through extensive processes with their tribal councils. And we've done so much work to find the site and get consensus on that we really did not want to have to go back through that. That's taken more than a year to get there. And so we pressed the arborist for a little more clarity rather than just kind of broad sweeping, diameters. We also reduced the footprint of the project significantly. And so that's kind of what you're seeing on the screen here. And we've kind of really reduced the impact to the root zone. We've talked to the arborist about hand excavation versus equipment excavation, maybe air spade work, that kind of thing, keeping our gravel minimized in terms of depth, keeping the rock border, trying to minimize that, minimize foundations, those kind of things. So we're doing all of that in this design in the effort to make sure we're not impacting those trees. And the arborist has also recommended some mitigation work that we would do, when the work is complete. So this is, if you're familiar with the promenade, maybe I'll just ask. Do you all know exactly where this is at along the promenade? Or
So there's a mini mart, that Quonset hut, is that just south of that? I know there's two outcroppings, one right by the VA, and then there's another one where there's a current bench. Is that current bench this bench that's shown in the drawing?
The current bench is an existing bench, but the Quonset hut's down another block. So north another block, if you will. So
Yeah.
Depending on the Quonset hut we're talking about, but the VFW hall, if you start at that location, the trail is pretty steep. And as you get to that, there's a rock outcrop off to your left. And that's really the most prominent viewpoint that you have in the city of the Falls, is right there. But you just go a little bit further and that pathway flattens out. And then, and there's kind of, if you see the rock outcropping just kind of in the drawing below the tribute location, it's almost a natural seating area. That was actually one of the areas we originally wanted to utilize for this tribute site, because it kind of made it nice seating area, if you will. It kind of framed it a little bit differently. And but there's also some concerns with rock depth and ADA grades there too. So we pushed it a little bit further south from that. As you go further north, beyond, on the other side of the two trees that we're showing there, there's a really nice natural kind of a bowl in the park there, and that's South Second. If you walk out to the street, that's South Second Street. So that's the area that we're talking about. So anyway, we worked harder with that arborist to look closer at the impacts and asked him to evaluate our plan, and he's since provided some additional direction on that. So the project encompasses 6% encroachment into the tree impact area. That was acceptable. He's got some tree mitigation and a construction plan to ensure the tree impacts are minimized. And during construction, the arborist will be on site, or at least during the excavation piece of that. And the other key piece that we heard from the Grand Ron was that we work with our own archaeologist on this site while we're doing that excavation, and we make sure we let the Grand Ron's archaeologist know, so that they're there to witness that as well. So while we're doing that work, we're going to have a couple of experts, one contract expert and one tribal expert, that'll be there to kind of pay attention to that work and how that's going, and have guidance for us should we discover something, which we're all hopeful we won't. But that's one of the reasons why we're really just pretty much doing pretty shallow surface excavations along here. The challenge is the area is not perfectly flat, but it's pretty flat. We've got we've got the need to meet ADA standards, even though it's a soft path. So trying to balance all that is what we've been doing. So a lot of detailed surveys and kind of looking at grades and figuring out how we can honor the need for the tribute and respect the naturalness of that area. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions. One thing that we did hear from the Historic Review Board, that some of you that are so maybe there's one more slide ahead. So this sign and the sign foundation, one of the things that, I'm representing for Dante Posadas, who's the project manager on this. He works for me, but he's out of town. And so he's been doing most of the work behind the design and the plan. And this foundation on this sign is kind of the standard foundation that has been used at other places of the park. And so these are standard drawings, and Denise shared these with me probably years ago now. It's been a while. But so anyway, the intention is to match the existing signage in the park. And that foundation, just again, kind of thinking about the depth of rock and the intention to minimize ground disturbance, will probably be more of what I found exists at other locations in the park, which is a spread footing that goes from post to post. Instead of 2 footings, it'll be 1 large footing. And it'll be chamfered and shaped despite what you see in these drawings. So I think that's since been revised. We just didn't want to change the information in the packet. So anyway, that you can actually see the storyline, the text that's going to go on that signage. The city will be acquiring that signage while we'll probably bid out, or we are going to bid out all the earthwork and pathway work. The signage, and for both this sign and the boulder, will be something the city will acquire. I think that's it for
So
me.
John, where was the original site of the Cayuse, where they met their end?
As I understand it from this site, as you look over the bluff, of course, the bluff was a lot different then, but as you look down on the mill site, it was right down there on the mill site, right below the site. So if you walk to the railing, because of the railing and because of this site topography, you don't really necessarily see it, but you got a great view of the falls right there. And then you walk straight over to the railing and you look down, and that's what, as far as I understand, where they believe the hanging occurred. Mm-hmm. And not far from where they were imprisoned while they were waiting for that final decision.
John, if I might, you mentioned the archaeologists that'll be involved in the project. I'm assuming there's been a preliminary evaluation of the site, at least a walkthrough by an archaeologist already, am I right?
Well, it's an area that the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde are very, very familiar with. So it's my understanding. Well, we've had the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation has been doing stories and had the University of Oregon classes there several years now. So there's a lot of familiarity with the site. I'm trying to remember if specific to our design work, have we had an archaeologist on site? Not yet.
I'm not familiar. Are the soil depths there very, very much? I haven't.
Well, so we've done a little bit of,
that's-
without excavating, we've done a little metal probing. And yeah, it varies, but we've seen some areas where we might get to 13 inches and some areas where the basalt or the native basalt is just under the soil. So yeah.
Well, it'll be an interesting project as you move forward in that location. Archaeologists, it's amazing what sometimes can be found when you're doing that, so.
Right, yeah.
I mean, for the most part, the site was already disturbed at some point when they built the promenade and some of the other stuff. So your depths of excavation are really pretty minimal. So do you anticipate really going into anything? And is SHPO already kind of on the same page as this too, or do we have to deal with them?
Well, I'm trying to remember our dealings with SHPO. They're aware of the project, but basically because the tribes have been so focused on this, they're letting them manage most of that. And as far as depths, again, we're trying to minimize that. We definitely need to transition from the back edge of the sidewalk, so it'll probably be the 4 inches there just to kind of deal with that. Obviously, we need to get to bedrock for the foundation, assuming it's just below the surface there. So yeah, you're right. There have been disturbances along there. You can tell based on there's a pile of rocks that are back in there. I'm pretty sure were part of the construction of the promenade. Obviously, 99E was, a construction site. I'm sure they were on
train
top of the
tracks.
bluff as well as off the edge. So we have high hopes that we find nothing with regard to cultural resources.
So, and if you can't get the depth on your footing, you're not gonna like blast, you're just gonna probably just pin it somehow.
Right?
Okay.
Yep.
And one more question, this doesn't have anything to do with charter provisions? I mean, we're within the.
This park, well, we consider this a park use, but this isn't a charter protected
Okay.
park yet. Right, there yeah, I understand you're working on
Get
it.
everything done first and.
But I mean, I think our intention is to be, this is a park use.
Sure.
Even though it's a tribute, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy
Any
to
other
answer any
questions?
other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't need to vote on it or anything.
Yeah, I
It's
don't-
happening. When do you start?
Oh, right. So just for your information, I got a schedule in there. So we're trying to get through the Historic Review Board and the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. We're going to finalize our design. We're giving ourselves some time. We're not sure we want to be in there in the wintertime, so we're hoping for more of a construction season that happens early spring. And, the project, because of all these other things, is very much like a landscape project as opposed to a construction project. So we're hoping it goes pretty quick. But we've talked to the same contractor that's done a lot of the repair work on the promenade, and just finding the right basalt and sourcing that, getting it. They'll cut it, even though I think there's going to be a lot of field cutting too, just to work around the existing rock. But yeah, so that's going to take some time. So we're hoping to be done by May.
Can I ask just one question? John, when you came forward this evening, you said you'd been in front of the HRB board and you wanted to be sure you got Prax, you said approval, I think was the word, or agreement. What is our role in one like this? I'm just curious what the Prax role is. This obviously project is moving forward. It's gone through all of the particular approvals through permits and all the appropriate stuff there. What's Prax's role in this particular decision making?
It's informational, but also gives Prac
I'm not sure if someone's talking, but we can't hear on Zoom.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's
Okay.
good. Thank you.
I was saying it's informational, and it also allows the committee to bring forward any questions or concerns or information that might not have been considered during the process. So I'm sure he got a lot of feedback from HRB, and so he takes all that information, and the project will still move forward, but if there's some things that need to be discussed or missed, it gives us that option to do that.
Yeah, I definitely think it's advisory, and this one's different in that we've got basically the three government agencies, and so and the commission's been informed on this pretty early on, and had kind of this set as a goal. It's really just trying to make sure. Yeah, I'd like to think staff was thinking with our Parks and Rec advisory hats on when we tried to kind of minimize things, but at the same time, I think normally would have liked to have brought it before PrAC much earlier, but it's just been sensitive, and we're learning our way with collaboration with tribes, and they do business a little different than we do, and we're learning that there's good reason for that sometimes. So we've appreciated our involvement with them, and it continues. We've got a lot of other, Grand Ron may be interested in a tribute of some sort as well at some point in the future. Obviously, we got a whole site development to work through, so this is putting our toe in the water and trying to do that. The city commission actually did a visit just a few weeks ago, maybe a month now, with the Umatilla Indian Reservation tribe, and got firsthand kind of interaction with them. I think 3 or 4 of them actually went over there, as well as a couple of staff. So it has been an iterative process, but trying to get, cross our T's like we normally would with PRAC and HRB has, so it's felt a little bit more like, information than asking for permission.
One last question, if I might. It goes along to the long work you said you've put in with collaborating with the various tribes. Does the city have a liaison or someone who has knowledge and experience of working with the tribes that they routinely can consult with? Because having had some extensive experience working with tribes on fisheries issues on the Columbia River and here in the Willamette, it can be a real challenge if you're trying to just step in and step out. Mm-hmm. Does the city have anybody who's acting as a liaison and could help with that kind of effort? Because I'll tell you, into the future, that's going to be important, I think. It's not our role at PRAC, I realize that, but
I think aside from the city manager, and in this case, Aquila and myself have attended most of these meetings. The city manager meets regularly with the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, and Aquila and I have been pretty regular with the Umatilla Indian Reservation, and it's been in both cases. They've got professional staff that help us work through the detailed issues, right? We're talking to them about land use. They've got land use planners. They've got project engineer, so they're looking for professional interaction, just like in this case, in the development's perspectives. And for this project, it's been working with their chief of staff and their historians and their land use person as well. But to me, it's kind of interesting. It's more like how well does our governing body work with their governing body and building that kind of relationship, because the staff to staff isn't that much different than any other agency, from what I can tell anyway. It seems pretty open and transparent. But other than that, I don't know of anybody else.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, up next on the list is the launch of new City of Oregon City website.
And Jarrett Lyman, our communications manager, will be providing this presentation.
I'm going to be sitting over here so I can drive the laptop and show this screen, so forgive the change there. Thank you for the time today. We are really excited to announce this project and be able to show it off to people. It has been a long time coming. They actually first started having conversations and planning in, I believe it was February of 22. The contract was signed in August of 22. So it was only at the very beginning of this month here in September that we were able to launch the new website. This is really, as a result of the fact that, when you have a few thousand pages that are getting transferred over from one site to another, there's a lot of what I need to do.
You might need to share your screen so that they
Oh, am I
can see
not?
it.
Okay.
I don't believe so anymore. Stop sharing.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Now am I sharing? Nope. Sorry, Zoom land. There we go. That's a very small screen. Forgive me. And I do have some experience with technology, believe it or not. So as I said, the process that started last year was identifying 3 main things, among many others, that they wanted to focus on. And that was a mobile-friendly website, because so much more traffic on web now comes from mobile devices than it did in the dinosaur times when the first site was made. We wanted to make sure that we met all the current standards of ADA accessibility. It's a very important aspect of any website, but especially in government. And also to add some tools for community engagement. So those 3 goals I think were met really well. We're excited with this. Now, note I haven't said the website's done. I don't think the website will ever be done. We're constantly going to be updating, putting new information, and also making changes as we hear back from the public. A lot of testing and so forth went into this site, but there's nothing that can substitute for good old-fashioned experience from the public to help us find other things that we might be able to change. So up top to start, it's hidden behind the Zoom menu, but you can kind of see our main menu. I want to, and this is populated with all the things that are most popular that people come to the website for: building permits, employment opportunities, go for a job and so forth, staff contacts, all these main things that we went back, looked at the traffic of the old website, see what's clicked on the most, and put that up front. Same thing with your government, with our boards and committees, our mayor and city commission pages, the municipal code and charter, agendas and minutes. Departments is also another popular page. It's displaying a little wonky right now, I think, because of the screen sharing. But each of our departments is on here, again, quickly accessed, doing business. And you may notice in some cases, there may be like a link that's in this menu and it's also in this menu. That's because we're trying to, A, make things easy to find, but B, minimize the number of clicks possible to get to the information. Some of this stuff is pretty complex and it does end up going down some rabbit holes, but we, as a basic rule of thumb, we're trying to keep it to 3 clicks or less to get the information that somebody needs. Again, our community, just a little bit of about information that's something that's always very popular on any municipal website. People, coming to learn more about that town. Down here, you'll see our graphic menus. Again, some of the more popular stuff: agendas and minutes, jobs, library, utility pay, parks and recreation, and then projects. More of the popular links as well there. And then we have our news and information banners. These are the most recent press releases that they can scroll through. And as I try to find the button between the things here, is that gonna work? Nope. Yeah, if I, can I move this? Hey, there we go. You can see then it just kind of scrolls through with all the recent press releases and so forth. One of the cool functions about that, though, is there are several elements on the website that we wanted to make sure that people have the ability to get updates on. So you can actually subscribe to many of the updates on here, and that's under our Notify Me. When somebody can create an account on the website and then confirm the various things they actually want to get notified when the website's updated. City Commission agendas, the calendar of events, Parks and Recreation events, press releases, and so forth. And we can add more functions to this, but people can choose, do they want an email when it's updated? We can actually send a text message when it's updated. So getting them the information as quick as possible in the way that they want to receive it most. Another element on here is the ability to create accounts on the website. In addition to being able to sign up for notifications on the website, you'll be able to actually take part in one of the tools for, sorry, I'm trying to get back to the homepage, the thing's blocking me again. One of the tools for public engagement, and that's the community voice tool. Right now, this is, because I haven't really been putting the word out there yet, this hasn't really been used much, but what this serves as a chance for the city to ask questions, ask feedback, look for community engagement, and the residents can respond. For example, one thing we just put up this week, a truly fascinating bit of information about the industrial commercial flood. I can't remember what it stands for again. It's a very long report, but part of the process that we have to go through is a mandated 30-day period to get public comment. So residents can come in here, read the report. It's also under the Public Works section, and then they can supply comment. So this actually serves as a really helpful tool for soliciting public comment on events like that, or just in a way that people want to, submit their ideas. Anybody's got an idea for a community event, infrastructure needs, The Parks and Recreation Master Plan process I put up there, something that we might be able to use as a way to gather more feedback as you proceed on that. So those were kind of the main functions for public engagement. I do want to show one other element because you are PrAC. Two of our departments actually went a little bit more onto the website and got kind of their own special look, which kind of gives them a little bit more functionality. It almost acts as if it's its own website. When you go to a normal department, it doesn't have graphic links, but Parks and Rec and our library did do that. So now some of your popular links will show up right here when somebody goes to the Parks and Rec page, as well as some of the additional ones here. And the really cool thing, especially when it comes to these top links on the main page on here, is again, as we see user patterns, as people actually ask for information, we're able to change those out really simply, or even if it's a seasonal thing. So we can work those around and really make it respond to the residents' needs. Parks and Rec has its own calendar of events, has its own news as well, so you can see that starting to get populated. Thank you, Melissa, she went through, put a bunch of stuff up there, tagged the homepage calendar as well yesterday, so thank you for making my life easier. So that's the basic. I'm like giving a real quick thing, because I mean, we could talk about this all night, but I don't think any of us want to do that. The last element I want to show you is what we call Ellie, and this is an AI-assisted search tool. So you've got a standard search bar up top, or you can go in here and theoretically, artificial intelligence will kind of give you some more information. So, oops. So, I do not like this keyboard. So we go in there, it thinks, does this little thing, and then it'll give us the link to the park rental page. We're continually training this tool. It is something that learns, so as people put more information, more people search there, it'll actually give us the chance to train it more. Myself, David Knoll, who deserves a ton of credit for this website project, he put in countless hours on this, really worked to train the AI tool, but as we went live, there was no way we could anticipate a lot of the questions that were coming up and the phrasing that came up and really specific answers that people were looking for. So it's going to be an ongoing process as we continually try to train Ellie, which is branded for our elevator. So those were the basic functions that we have there in the public engagement options. Do you have any questions or anything else you'd like to see more of?
I have one. I mean, I've worked on a few corporate websites before when they've done a major redesign. And one of the big questions or one of the big goals that they have is we want to be able to get to every single thing on the site within a certain amount of clicks. Mm-hmm. When you're redesigning your website, was there a specific goal you had with that? And do you feel you've achieved that so far in the process?
The main rule of thumb we try to follow was to get the information they needed within 3 clicks. You know, I think we accomplished that on a lot of the possibilities, but again, when you're talking about, I mean, there's 2,000 pages on here with information going back 20 years. I tried very hard to get rid of a lot of it, but we just couldn't do it. So in all cases, it's just not possible, but we did try to minimize that as much as possible as one of our top goals.
Right. Is it all live now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the website is completely live. When you go there, you will see all the new design. Google has indexed the new site, so when it first went live, I made about 70 redirects because Google wasn't updated, but it finally recrawled and reindexed. So it looks like last time I checked, everything's finally clicked over to the right links.
I noticed that I was trying to find some old minutes, and you know, so I know that some of that stuff's probably, it'll take forever to get it all that loaded.
Well, that's part of the issue with that is kind of a merging of the old technologies and new technologies. In some aspects, it hasn't been 100% merged, so we have some temporary solutions using our old technology that is linked through the new site. And one of the things that has to be done is our recorder has been going through and putting as many of the old minutes on things over as possible. It's just going to take a while because, as you can imagine, there's a lot of them.
Right. And I think the hardest part with something like that is trying to actually, I mean, if you know exactly what you're looking for, it's easy.
Yeah.
If you don't, you can spend pretty much all afternoon just kind of wandering around and trying to
get
there. And I don't know if that's, you know, I think that's kind of the nature of the beast because you just don't know. But I mean, if you know exact dates, that's great. You know, you can kind of narrow the search down. But
Yeah, and that's, as you say, kind of a nature of the beast, unfortunately, just again with that much information. But, you know, I do hope that if there's somebody has something and they're not finding it, I'd like to know so that way we could try to find a way to make that more navigable and easier to get to.
Tonight's meeting is not on the calendar.
The September stuff is not on there, but if you move over to October, it is there. It was on the old site, but when it came new, I think there was something and it didn't switch over. I was actually looking at that before today, so if
This goes back to like the merging of the old software with the new software. When we were utilizing, which we still are, utilizing Municode, whenever you put a meeting into the system, it automatically populated on the website. Unfortunately, that's not an option right now. We're doing kind of a workaround to try to make sure that we get that information posted, but that's one of the things that we're working on.
And there's various options out there. You know, nothing is a one-to-one switch. There's always going to be some give or take with what option we take.
Sure.
But I mean, it's functional now and it's going to continually improve. But like I said, I popped over to October and you can see the calendar's populated there.
CIC's not on there. It should be on the 2nd, the first Monday.
I know, because I'm actually the liaison for that. I don't know why it's not up there. I know, because they put up the agenda the other day. I'm not sure why that one's not showing. That's something I get to look at. Remember when I said it wasn't done?
Yeah, work in progress.
Always. Like I said, we'll be working on this website until it's time for the new one.
Jared, I saw a picture of a person fishing off of a dock. Is that off the Straub dock? And if so, there's a sign on the railing that says no fishing.
No fishing.
That I have not seen. That picture is probably just one of the old stock photos that was in the drive that they went through. Do you know what page you saw that on?
You just flash it
Oh, did
down
I?
here, yeah. So it's somewhere in the parks.
Oh, on the park side, okay. And the images do rotate with each loading and so forth, so you'll see different imagery when you come through. Like, was it up this banner area here?
Yeah, what park is that?
At Park Place.
Park Place?
Oh, there? I am not sure on that photo. It's one of ours, but I can look into that and.
That's
Am I not
certainly
right?
John Storm
I
Park.
think there's a sign on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not allowed.
I-
Look at that.
cute.
Well, that's why they took
Yeah.
the picture. They were recording it.
I'm not 100% sure why we
And we
don't-
got it from code enforcement.
Yeah, we'll swap that out.
we could have a discussion about why we have it closed or why we shouldn't
Yeah,
have it.
that'd be a good one too.
Yeah.
I could just, scrub this guy off and put somebody having a picnic out there or something.
You know, Photoshop's got some great tools now for getting rid of content. I can do that.
That's actually a Marine Board requirement, probably, not necessarily a city thing. They don't want to fund docks for fishing when they're supposed to be boater access.
Yeah, well, that dock, that, we could have a long discussion about that dock, so we won't go there tonight. That's not for a later meeting, put it on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to digress this into something completely different.
The website looks very good. Thank you.
We got a lot of fishermen around here.
Thank you. Any other questions or?
So, so the Go Request link, maybe, John, you know this, is that back working again? Is that an app for our phones and it's not now on the city website? Or do we know?
Which, I'm sorry, I didn't catch what that was.
That's our favorite tool
The Let's
when we find problems in the city is the.
Oh, the MyOC app?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that is functional. It is still functional. It is something that once my attention is not so dedicated to the website, we're gonna dive into that and really make sure there's everything functioning the way it's supposed to be and so forth, because it did, for a while, not get a lot of look just because of lack of staffing. So that is actually on my goals to make sure everything's as good in that and see if there's any improvements possible.
was it my OC?
MyOC, yeah.
Okay, that was a different name. Okay,
And again, if you find anything or questions, please reach out to me anytime. I'm rather be told something twice than not at all, so let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next up on the agenda, it's Aquila.
And, Deb Ghilardi.
Oh, Deb, sorry, Deb.
Deb is our consultant that we're working with to do the revision of our STC methodology. We've had some conversations about that in regards to our Parks Master Plan and the need to update our STC methodology. The last time it was updated was back in 2000. A lot has changed since then, and so she's going to help us navigate those waters. Deb? Make
Hit
sure
the
it's
little
on.
button on there. Yep, you got it.
Okay, great. All right, well, I wanted to just give you an overview tonight, because we're just really kicking off the process. So, no real numbers other than what you currently charge in terms of SDCs, but want to make sure everybody understands what an SDC is. You probably weren't around on the commission in 2000, or so, sort of setting things up for coming back later with some results. Okay. So in Oregon, we are guided by statute that provides some guidelines around how we set up SDCs, the methodology, procedural requirements. And just to be clear, systems development charges are one-time charges at the time of a new development, generally when they get a permit. And across the country, these are used to fund capital investments for growth. They are called lots of different things in different places. Here we call them SDCs. In other places, they're called impact fees or capacity fees. Basically, all means the same thing, a charge on new development for capital improvements. And in Oregon, parks are one of 5 infrastructure systems that we can charge SDCs for. And the statutes were intended they were put in place about 1990. And the purpose is to allow for it is a funding mechanism for orderly growth and development. And, but within that framework, there is flexibility and to pick specific approaches and things to meet the community's needs. Okay? So the SDC program is comprised of 4 primary elements. One is a project list. That is a requirement of Oregon law, that we identify the specific projects, their costs, the timing, and the percent that's eligible for improvement fee funding. And that means it has to be a capacity project related to growth. So the methodology that the city will adopt as part of this update will be that framework for how we determine the growth share and how we're going to charge different development types. So whether you're you're building a residential home or a commercial industrial type development. So the factors, all of that needs to be laid out in the methodology, and there are review notification requirements so that people that are impacted by the SDCs can understand those and provide feedback to the City Commission. So the SDC schedule then lays out what the charges that the community is going to charge. There can be policy-based reductions for things like affordable housing and those sorts of things. And then there's our administrative policies and procedures that are primarily, as required by statute, that lay out appeals and other elements of the administration of SDCs. Why are we doing this now? Because you are in the process of completing a parks master plan, and that's generally what triggers a systems development charge update, because it provides new standards for facilities and parks that you're planning for, the vision that the community has established. And from that, we can build a list of capital projects that becomes a key part of the SDC calculation and methodology. And it also, under Oregon law, you have to identify it to spend SDC money, you have to identify those projects and spend in accordance with that. Also, if a developer is required to dedicate land or build some facilities, there are there's a mechanism for providing credits against the SDC as sort of reimbursement to that developer for doing that. And if that project is part of the project list. So the project list is really key. It comes out of the work done for the master plan. The improvement fee is one part of the SDC methodology. The other part is the reimbursement fee. So at any point in time, you may have excess capacity in certain facilities or park types. In other cases, you might be constrained where you're not providing the level of service, the number of miles of trails, the number of play structures or pickleball courts that the community would like to see. And so you have a deficit. So part of that is an important determination, and the law, though, allows us to recover both. You know, when you have that available capacity, you're exceeding your standards currently, you have room for growth in certain facilities, you can recover those costs in the reimbursement portion of the fee. Other facilities where you have to expand capacity, that is where the improvement fee. And then there is also the ability to use SDC funds to pay for costs of complying with the statutes. So that's another thing that we'll be looking at as well. That's the costs of my time to help the city to do that, a portion of the master planning costs, and other sort of administrative requirements that speak to the statute. Okay. So your current SDCs, you know, parks are built for people. And that can be the resident population as well as non-residents who come to the city and have the opportunity to enjoy the parks. So the residential SDCs are scaled by type of dwelling based on the average number of occupants of the different types. So you can see that single family is charged a higher fee than a multifamily dwelling unit, and that's because the average people per household tends to be lower in multifamily dwellings. And manufactured dwellings are kind of in between. And that's based on census, US Census data. So that's one thing that we'll be looking at as part of this update, is determining if those are still the right categories. Are those the right fee differentials based on current demographics? And then, of course, just updating the fee levels based on whatever the costs that we have identified are. For non-residential, the approach is based on the number of employees, but the charge is in accordance with the size of the building. So as measured in 1,000 square feet of building area. So there are sort of standards or general ranges assumed for different types of businesses of how many employees per thousand. And so we use that information to determine what the rates are for different non-residential types. But it's all around people. Okay. This just gives you an idea of the process, the flow of developing the methodology and where some of the policy issues are. So the first area of work is to determine those growth costs. Is there a portion of the project list that is related to increasing the level of service for existing development? That is not a cost that can be paid by SDCs. So we're looking at the growth-related costs. And policy questions or issues that are addressed are, the types of facilities that we're going to include, what's the level of service, it varies by community, and that is, again, informed by the master plan process. We come up with the cost per unit. So once we determine the overall cost that we're trying to recover from new development, how much of that should be residential versus non-residential. and then divide that over the projected number of new residents, new employees, to come up with a cost per unit. The final component of the methodology then is coming up with how we're going to charge the different types of land uses, and based on, the number of categories and those differentials, and whether there's going to be any waivers or exemptions. Okay. This table just gives you a snapshot of pulling some information from the master plan that is important consideration in doing this work. So this table just shows you for four of the park types, the current level of service in terms of the acres per thousand population, and what the recommended level of service is. So you can see that in a couple of cases, the neighborhood parks and community parks, a higher level of service is recommended compared to where you are today. So that would suggest that you do not have available or excess capacity in terms of that level of service, that you need to acquire and develop additional acres of neighborhood and community park land, and that a portion of that is needed just to provide greater access and more facilities for existing development, and part of that is for related to growth. And so that's where we focus in for identifying projects then that and costs associated with expanding that neighborhood and community park facilities and acreage. And then for regional parks, though, you actually are exceeding the recommended level of service, and which is a good thing. And so there is perhaps not going to be additional acquisition planned, but there could be a portion of the SDC that recovers some of those past investments that new development will also benefit from. So there's a lot of number crunching that goes into it. For determining that, one of the key things, and really, is important for just equitable, defensible development of fees and charges, but also has become an issue in terms of looking at housing affordability and making sure that everybody is paying their share of, is residential paying an equitable portion, and more importantly is non-residential, because there were early on, when the SDC statute first was put in place, a lot of communities didn't even charge a Parks SDC for non-residential. And so I think, as we're dealing with a statewide housing affordability issue, more focus has come on, is non-residential development paying its share in terms of park use, because there is a nexus there, both employees and, visitors to businesses benefiting from the city having excellent parks. So what we do tend to look at, though, again, try to be data-driven, looking at available information from census data on how many employers are coming into the city, or how many employees are coming into the city versus residents that are working at those businesses. Sometimes we look at park use, if there's survey information, park reservations, how much of that is for supporting non-residential kind of uses. So we'll be looking at what information's available and bringing perhaps some options in terms of how to make that equitable allocation. Okay. Finally, SDC administration, again, just, there's a lot of other things that go into the SDC program that the city has to, and the statutes are changing regularly. Just this last year, there was a new requirement put in about public information. So your new website has to make sure that there's information that complies with the statute to make it very easy for somebody, a developer, to know what their SDCs would be. You have a nice SDC calculator that somebody can go in and put their project information in and determine what their SDC is. So I would say you exceed the requirement in terms of the statewide statute. But yeah, so there's an ordinance that we'll need to review to make sure that if we make any changes to the methodology, that the code is updated to reflect that. Okay. Next steps, as I said, we're just starting this process. I had the opportunity to meet the master plan consultants this week. One of the key pieces that the plan does not identify specific park improvements and costs. It's more of a visioning and identifying areas where there's access issues. And from that, though, we need to have a list of projects and estimated costs and timing in order to develop that improvement fee. Obviously, as I said, there are parks and facilities where you do have available capacity. We'll be estimating what the value of that is as part of the fee and determining those costs. So that's, we expect this will take a few months, probably, depending on how quickly we can compile a project list and do that analysis. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I've got a question for you. So where does Oregon City sit right now on SDCs compared to our surrounding cities?
We're one of the lowest.
Yeah?
Actually, when Public Works did their SDC rate study, FCS came in and did some analysis of our SDC rates, and we are one of pretty close to the bottom in regards to our for parks. Yeah.
For parks?
Yeah. Not for Public Works.
No. It's important to keep things as low as possible, so keep things affordable for the general public. So it all flows to the home buyer. Okay. Anybody else?
So I've got a couple, I guess. Did you say so we're not going to be expecting any sort of a project list in the master plan?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we are not going to have a list?
We are going to have a list.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, just a quick, so I don't understand this, the standards yet are not in any sort of an adopted master plan, so you can't even technically really, I mean, you can kind of lay it out, but those could change as the master plan gets adopted. But a quick looks like there's a requirement for a total of 56 acres additional parkland that we're going to need, and only about 15 of that would be SDC eligible. So then that means that we figure out a way to fund another 41, 42 acres. So after assuming that we figure out a way to fund that and it's funded, would you recommend that we would go for a reimbursement cost, or would you say we've elevated our standards and therefore we could just apply that increase directly to the SDCs as opposed to going back for a reimbursement?
So going back for a reimbursement on other types of
Yeah, I mean, so
projects?
you've kind of said there's a reimbursement component in there.
Yep.
So somewhere in the next 3 to 5 years, we miraculously find a way to fund 42 acres of park acquisition and development. If it's done outside of the SDC structure, it's my understanding that then you could use that to actually, you could elevate your standard. Or you could just assess the fees to kind of reimburse for those. My preference would be to hopefully increase the standard and say now I mean, that just seems like, because you're always going to be going for, growth. You're always going to be going up against that.
Yeah.
So a better standard, because you can't charge for what our desired needs are. It's just for what our actual, to maintain the existing standard, correct?
Well, you can't charge new development to increase the level of standard for existing development.
Right. Right.
If you decide that you are going to, adopt a plan that has a higher standard, you can charge new development for what it would take to get to that standard, only for that that new increment of population.
Right.
So, yeah, if you have to increase, 20 acres, but 15 of those is for existing development, you can't charge new development for the 20 acres. So, or you can say, we want to keep the fees lower, we want to keep, we're only going to charge based on our current standard. That's a different calculation. So these are the policy decisions that come into play. One of the things is one of the reasons that the statute requires an actual project list is that there has been some analysis that yes, those additional acres are actually, there is land available, there are sites available, there is that potential to build those. It's not just, oh, we think we need 20 more acres and we haven't figured out where, whether we even can accommodate that in the system. So there has to be some specificity and around the cost, what those improvements are, the general timing. So that does mean also that there is some thought given into where the money is going to come from for that other portion to raise the level of service for existing development. So, yeah.
In your experience, have you found that it's, because you can be super specific on a project list, which then
Yeah.
boxes you in, or you can be, I don't want to say vague, because it's not vague, but you can say, we need a 10-acre community park, and the whole park is eligible, versus saying, well, it's going to have a baseball field, it's going to have a skate park, it's going to have all these things that may or may not individually be eligible. So depending on how the methodology is worded, I think, is how.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, is there an opportunity to, I don't know whereabouts in this process that would come, but again, that's another policy type of decision and recommendations. And do you have a preference for either one?
Well, oftentimes, we'll look at land and develop acreage separately, because oftentimes there will be, have been purchases of land made that's sort of there and ready to develop. And so that might be kind of that reimbursement component of, we've already acquired some land to build additional parks, and really that will help meet that need of future growth. And then, just looking at kind of the average cost per acre to build to a typical neighborhood park standard or a typical community park standard, without getting too detailed about it's got to have X number of play structures or fields, like you said. We can, sometimes for specialized facilities, pickleball courts, or also for indoor recreation, looking at square footage or, how many courts. So you can look at it. I think for specialized facilities, sometimes it works best to do that kind of look at a facility level. But just for general neighborhood community parks that can have a mix of amenities, you don't need to get overly specific, and let it build out as the community desires it to.
And then I guess finally, what about just open space? So, because there's a lot of parkland that's, and that's still a value to the community, and it should be a standard, it should be a level of service standard of just having open space. It might have I know it has to have some sort of a recreational component in order to be eligible for SDCs, but I didn't see, is that kind of lumped into community regional, or is there going to be or do you envision a category for open space?
Well, it has to be accessible. I think that's
Right.
generally, and maybe there's a trail or some sort of viewing platform or something like that.
But 20 acres with a trail is a lot different than a 20-acre regional park, if you're gonna
yes,
assess
sure.
costs, so.
Sure.
So would there be
Yeah, the categories really will come out of the master plan. You know, we'll just look at, because that's where you're really laying out what the inventory of facilities, including open space, you know, whatever is here today, and what the community desires in terms of the park types. And I'm not sure for open space kind of, if there's, I mean, I know there's a trail category and there's your regional parks. So, yeah, whatever is considered part
of the
of
standard.
the, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we will include that for sure. It'll all be on the table, let's say, and then it will be a determination of what gets funded based on doing that evaluation of, and the trade-offs.
So I guess the kind of the anecdote to all of that is that we need to be kind of careful on whatever that final standard is that we throw out there then. 'Cause
It
that's
is.
gonna have a huge impact on
Absolutely.
potential fees.
Yeah, and, you know, generally, my approach is to identify what the maximum allowable fee could be for meeting the standards and based on, you know, the cost. And then it's really up to the community then to decide to do that balance of what is appropriate for Oregon City.
Well, because you don't always have to assess the SDC.
That's correct.
There's lots of other ways.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great questions and points, yeah.
Any other questions? So let's take a hypothetical development, let's say 400 units going in. I know that you set standards so that they're even across the board, so that when somebody builds something, that no matter where they are in the city, they are going to pay that SDC amount. Would you allow for the developer to trade property for SDCs? Or do they need cash or to pay the SDC payment?
Well, again, that's really city policy. What the state law requires is if the city says to that developer, you have to, you know, provide for some park land, and it's basically over and above what that development needs, or it's on the project list, then some reimbursement, i.e. you don't, okay, in exchange for that, we're not going to charge you SDCs for the value up to what, you know, you otherwise would owe. That's generally the way it works.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Good night.
All right, we're moving on. General business. And here we have staff reports.
I'll kick things off. So first off, I'd like to thank our Vice Chair, Steve Williams, for his magnanimous presentation for our PrEC annual plan. He did a great job. We really appreciate him giving that. I wanted to provide an update on our Parks Master Plan. We're currently reviewing the final drafts. We're working on our capital improvement plan. We've had meetings with our SDC consultant, sharing information there. We are also working on our customer service training and our marketing plan moving forward. So the goal is once we finally have done all of the revisions and have all of the information in the plan to then bring that plan back to PrAC for direction, feedback. We need to have some conversations about the capital improvement plan and the projects that we're proposing, so we can make sure that we have the best plan in place before we then would take it to the city commission to get their feedback, so.
Kendall, sorry to interrupt, but what are you shooting for a time frame? Because in order for us to be effective at giving you feedback, we gotta have a little bit of time to look at this thing rather than just a few days before we have a meeting on a Thursday. So what's your time frame, and how do we build in some time for us to
I
have a
would
little more
prefer
time
to-
looking at it so we give you decent feedback?
Yeah, I would prefer to give you a month before the meeting to have the opportunity to do a deep dive and review it, to provide feedback. So you'll know well in advance when that's ready to go. So we can have the opportunity to even send me questions ahead of time or information you like answers on. So when we come to that meeting, we can answer some of those questions as well.
Would it be possible to get a printed copy when you do that so that we're not trying to,
Don't email it.
well, it's,
Oh, you-
I don't even think you could email it, to be honest, but.
We
but I mean,
figure
for
out a
us-
way.
For us to try to
Yeah.
print
Right.
200 pages or 300 pages, it's gonna, you know, with the photos and everything else, it's gonna go through, you know, $300 worth of ink.
Okay. We'll make that happen.
Make it an option that we could check into or not, because I
Okay.
could read it off my computer, so.
Okay.
Depends on what you're familiar with.
I kinda like to just make
Yeah.
notes though, you
Touch
know,
it,
and
yeah.
so.
No, important thing.
All right. Any other questions about the Parks Master Plan?
So we get the Parks Master Plan before we get the Clackamette Master
Well,
Plan.
that's next on the list. We have some some things to talk about with the Clackamette Park Master Plan.
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. Who said it would be easy? So we are currently going to be participating in another work session with the city commissioners to discuss two areas of concern with the Clackamette Park Master Plan. One is the RV park location, and the other thing is the ability for the site to host large events. So it was voted last week to bring it back for a work session to discuss those aspects of the plan with the city commissioners to garner any feedback. Because originally when we came to the city commission and during the work session is to provide an update about the rezoning of the overflow parking lots from mixed use to institutional so we could relocate the RV park. Well, during that conversation, there was additional conversation about aspects of the plan that they would like to have some additional conversation about. So what I've done is I've captured all of their concerns. I've followed back up with our consultant to get some feedback from them. I've shared some of the feedback from the consultants, and then myself and the consultants plan to go back October 18th to walk them through those points that they have issues with about the plan, to hopefully address some of those concerns and speak to the reasoning behind the 900 people who participated in the survey and almost 2 years of public engagement, why we made some of the decisions that we made and some of the limitations in regards to the site, location that they might not be aware of, to hopefully build a consensus so then we can continue to move that plan forward. Because without their approval to allow us to rezone those two pieces of property, we're not going to be able to go back to the planning commission to get their sign off and then start the process of getting full adoption of the plan. So we've hit a roadblock is what I'm trying to say. So this is one of those areas where when we talk about how PrAC can be involved, this is one of those areas where you as PrAC members can help advocate for the plan and aspects of the plan. And so what I'm going to do is share some of the concerns, share some of the feedback that we've gotten from our consultant with all of you to see if you have any questions, and give you a copy of the final plan and different aspects of the plan. And we would love to have you come and be advocates for the plan moving forward.
When you say come, you mean to the city commission meeting and?
You can come or you can participate over Zoom.
Well, sure, sure. But it's important to get us the information to work
Yeah.
from to be able to help you with that.
And you'll have first thing in the morning. So I'll make sure to get that to you. All right. Parks Parks and Cemetery Manager. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, Jonathan Waverly left the city. And so we are currently moving forward with a recruitment for our Parks and Cemetery Manager. We did post the job this month, and we plan to do our first review of applicants on October 31st. Prac vacancies and recruitment. So we currently have 2 vacant positions that were never filled. One vacant position that we have, the term ends December 31st, 2023 of this year. The other vacant position that we have, the term ends December 31st of 2025. We also have 2 members whose terms end. Tim, your term ends December 31st, 2023, and Emily, your term ends December 31st, 2023 as well. So what we're doing right now, the city recorder is trying to recruit people to apply. We've already started getting applicants for interviews. What we normally do is we don't normally meet in November due to Thanksgiving. The first week of December, that Thursday, is when we schedule a PrAC work session to actually bring everyone in who's applied to do the interview process. And then after the work session, there's a regular meeting to discuss the applicants and make whatever recommendations to the mayor of who you desire to move forward. So I wanted to put that on everybody's radar and see if there were any questions about that.
Sounds, Kendall, if I was counting right, you've got one vacant position that ends December 2023, 2 currently filled positions for which those current sitting members can
Yes, reapply.
and then one vacant one that
Doesn't end till
doesn't until
2025.
December
Yep.
25.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Any questions or comments about any of that? All right, well, that ends my update. Denise, you want to kick things off?
So we have been doing the West Good Neighbor Agreement project, which is along the River Access Trail. I met with our project manager today, clarified some of our tree scope, which would be our hazard tree limb removals that are within target zone of the trail and path. And then our removals for dead, dying, diseased trees. We have 3 that are on our property, or the city's property. This is urban renewal property. Parks maintains the trail and path. There are several trees that have been identified on Wes's property, and we do maintain the trail and path through Wes's property. That tree work that would be within their, I guess I would back that up. Their tree removals on their property are best handled by Wes. We'll provide them the information from the arborist, and then it will be up to Wes to decide if they want to move forward with those removals. We did the same thing last year with them. We did handle the hazard tree limb removals that would be targeting the path. So we'll be doing that. We've also walked to look at the invasives along the pathway. And so we'll be doing the same thing we did last year, is pull the invasives back 6 to 10 feet, keeping that pathway open and clear. And then we have the asphalt work that we've also gotten estimates for. So there'll be sections, if you walk that path, I know some of you do, if you walk that path, there are some white markings on the trail path where that's pretty rough. Areas that we want to address by taking the asphalt back, rebasing it, paving it. We're going to do crack seal and slurry. So it is going to impact the travelability of the asphalt area when we do that work. Before we do that work, we will definitely be notifying the public, making signage so that everybody is aware this is coming. And we just need to work with the construction company to mitigate where we can detour people. So much like we did when we did the concrete work, we'll have to find a way to navigate around the work that's being done. It's a very highly traveled path. It's very difficult to close. So we're trying not to close it, but obviously we're gonna have to work with the contractors and make sure that we have a safe component around the work area. The cemetery restroom is primarily complete. We still have temporary certification occupancy. So the TCO is still in place because we do not have our bike rack in place yet. We're still waiting for it to be delivered, supposed to be delivered by the end of this month. We'll get them tomorrow, and then we'll have to start knocking on doors and finding out where it's at. Once that's in place, then we get our certification of occupancy, and then we'll be done. That'll be an actual, official, complete project. Charter park designations, I've been working on the McLaughlin Promenade encroachments. I've been directed to provide Tony Conkle, our city manager, and Kendall Reed, our director, a categorization of the encroachments, which we did buildings, structures, landscape, parking, or access as our categories. Been asked to give visuals of those encroachments as well, so we've tried to capture those as best we can. And then we also have a survey that shows those encroachments by inches and feet. So inches and feet for, let me clarify that, inches and feet on the survey for buildings and structures like fences, so, or sheds. So decks and stairs are also considered structure or building. So those are on the actual survey. So those have been provided to Kendall and Tony, and I'm just waiting for more clarification of next steps.
Just a quick question, is this bike rack coming from some long distance, or is it really fancy, or?
It's not really fancy, it's very primitive, very simple. It's, I don't know why it takes so long. It really isn't anything special, I think, and it's not from China. That it says a US company. So whether it's coming, once we don't get to see where the initial destination it's coming from is, we just are told it's being shipped.
Do you have one laying around that you could just take over there and?
We did.
I did. I had a free
Didn't work
one.
very long.
I had a free one.
Yeah.
It doesn't meet today's current planning code specs. So the diameter of the metal is too wide for a U-lock, according to our specs. And the distance between the inside of each of the legs of it does not meet our current code, which is 18 inches. So it was, I think, 10 or 11.
Interesting, okay. Yeah.
It's, government red tape. We
Yeah.
tried to get a free one, we really did.
Well,
All right, Brandon?
Evening. I'm Brandon. I'm the interim for right now for Mr. Waverly, but just got to update you guys that we have 6 new picnic tables put up at EOT, and we're gonna have 1 ADA picnic table put in at the shelter down below. It's not here yet. It's on its way. It's probably with her bike rack. We removed 8 of the old ones. I don't know if you guys saw those up on the deck at EOT. They were falling apart, and so we took some of our frames that are more sturdy, refurbished them, and put 6 up on there and anchored them to the deck. So that's all been redone. We are gonna be removing 7 trees. I'm in the middle of getting the permits through with planning. It's been a learning curve because there's a lot of things I've missed because it's been changed a few times. So we're gonna be removing 7 trees at, there's gonna be 4 Hillendale one at Hazelwood and 2 at Chapin. And we'll have to be replanting 18 new trees at those sites, and it'll be 3 at Hazelwood, 6 at Chapin, 9 at Hillendale. For the DBH, how big the trees are we're taking out, I do believe it's 6 per 6 inch is 1 tree. So there's a cottonwood at Hillendale is why we have to replace a larger number of trees, but we're, once those permits come in, we can get those trees removed and these new ones planted. Wesley Lynn, the double check for the irrigation system, it is really old and it's not, they can't refurbish it efficiently. It's gonna cost the same amount if they refurbish it or if we buy a new one. So on the 6th of October, Mike Patterson Plumbing's supposed to come out and install a new 4-inch double check there for the irrigation. We did have to redo the booster pump there already this year because it was shorting out and causing issues with pressure to the park. So it was leaving a lot of brown spots and just had to be replaced. We're in the middle of, I'm in the middle of putting a camera up at the Clackamette RV dump because for where the kiosk is, so we can see cars leaving, people are paying in and out, and that right now we're waiting on the contractor. He's supposed to be getting parts for getting all the supplies together, I should say, to mount up on a pole. So then there'll be, you haven't decided yet if it's gonna be a fisheye camera so you can see, or if it's gonna be a dual camera so you can see the license plates coming in or leaving. So then we can kind of see what's going on down there. I do have, came up with something for a pool hillside renovation. It's over off Jackson and 13th at the pool. There's the hillside right there. It's not, you can't really do anything with it. It's pretty steep. We looked at excavating that out at the bottom about, it'd be about 4 inches, and putting a 3-foot Manor stone brick wall right there, and then backfilling it with soil, and then putting in a pollinator garden with that. So it'd be all kinds of pollinator plants and shrubs in there, or like shrubs like Oregon grape and we got there's Oregon grape, rock rose, Russian sage, and doing like a clover kind of plant over the top of it, just to try to get pollinator set up. It's a 200-foot long hillside, and it's pretty long, so it would take quite a bit to, takes quite a bit of money to do that. The stone is pretty expensive, and man hours are, there's a lot of man hours involved, and contracting it out is, it's about the same, I would say, as if we were doing it. So that's what I was kind of looking at for maybe either a community thing or a volunteer thing, kind of helping out with some of that, like bricks and doing that, like on when people have time or whatnot.
So I asked Brandon to bring this project to PrAC. This is another activation for all of you. We have a pollinator garden currently at VFW. We did our monarch butterfly pledge, and we heard from the community that we want more pollinators. And so we've identified this location as a good location to install a pollinator garden, but we currently don't have the funding in order to make that happen. So what we want to do is work with PrAC, also possibly work with NRC, maybe even do some outreach to the Parks Foundation to see if there's a way that we can collaborate, whether it be going out for grants or volunteer time to work together to see about getting this pollinator garden install at the aquatics facility. And so what we're going to do is compile this information, share it with all of you. And what I like to do is just have some additional conversation about it at our next meeting and kind of talk through what next steps should be and kind of how we move forward to try to get this pollinator garden installed.
Do you have potential drawings of that?
I do not have potential drawings. I did print off some of the costs and plants, if you guys want some hard copies to look at.
It's mostly what are your ideas for this and how's it gonna look?
The main idea is that it's so steep that if we were to do like a jute net or anything like that and remove the grass, the sidewalk and where the hillside meets, it would just run dirt constantly in there. And so the plan is just to put a 3-foot rock wall that's next to the sidewalk and with a perf pipe through there so we can exit and put it towards the bottom where the drain is at the very bottom. So then we're not having any kind of runoff onto the sidewalk. And then just backfilling that with like a 3-way soil, something that's a nice soil to put in there. And then like overcasting for like poppies and clover we were looking at, and just pollinator. I don't have all the plants in front of me, but there was quite a bit. But just putting those in there with shrubs with a line up there, because I do know that Melissa does do camps up there, so it kind of leaves a barrier in between there for her camp. So then it kind of separates the kids from that. And then the rock wall kind of gets it up higher from, I know that was a concern. We had looked at this before with people walking on the sidewalk and the pollinator garden being like right there on the sidewalk. So this lifts it up higher to where bees and stuff can potentially just go over the, not be right in the path of where somebody's walking.
It's a good idea. It's a steep hill and I'm sure your maintenance guys would appreciate not mowing that hill.
Yes, I've mowed that hill quite a few times myself, so.
Is there water?
There is no water there, and we were looking at more drought-tolerant plants, and
We also need water for the pollinators too.
right, and so
even some sort of a,
that was a deal that I am not sure how we could get water to there, and that was clover. That's why we keep saying clover. Clover's very
sure.
drought tolerant, like it grows anywhere if you have any kind of loose dirt. So that's what I know that Public Works had done a pollinator garden there at Division and Taylor with theirs. There's no water at that location. The poppies seem to do pretty good. I'm not quite sure.
They'll take over that's all you'll have
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
So
California.
there is no plans for water at this point now.
Just in terms of like water usage, poppies are especially great if they're sown in the fall. So I think depending on the timeline for this project, there could be like a lot of opportunity for like a fall planting season, and then the seeds have opportunity to kind of lie dormant and then potentially have like a first bloom period, and then if shrubs are planted or things that need a little bit more water when they're first in the ground, that would give a lot more time. I know spring is a really popular time to plant, but given that there's no water on that site, I think that the long-term success of the plants will probably be better if it's planted in the fall. I know fall's not necessarily the best time to plant in terms of rain for the actual people planting, but for the plants, it's really great.
Yes, I do agree with you. That is the best time. Trees, anything like that, fall, November timeframe is really a good time for them to get a head start with lots of water.
And then just to comment on the question about having water access for the pollinators, if the plants that are provide nectar that is taken in liquid form, and so there wouldn't, necessarily need to be like water provided. Most pollinators have quite a large range that they're drawing from, so I think that maybe would be less of an issue if the right nectar plants are chosen. And California poppies are one of the best ones for that. The Extension Service did a really great study monitoring insect visits over a 3 or 4 month season, and California poppies were consistently number 1 or 2 in terms of nectar production and number of visits by pollinators, and they're native, so that's definitely a great choice. And seeds are very, very cheap, so I think that sounds like a great one. And I'm on the NRC also, so I'd be happy to bring this project up with them and with the Oregon City Parks Foundation folks as well.
Great.
One quick question. You mentioned tree removal at Chapin.
Yes, sir.
When we were on our prac tour,
Those are the
there
ones.
were two trees right next to the park that were dead.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I know we had to have an opinion. Are those the 2 trees? Oh, nice. I'm glad. That take away the opportunity to not drop a tree limb on top of a car. There we go. Thank you.
There's 16 pages worth of documentation we have to provide before we can remove a tree. So it takes a while, unfortunately.
Anyway, I'm glad that's occurring. That makes logical sense.
Yeah. All right.
Are there any other questions or?
Yeah, Kendall, I think that you brought up an interesting point. It's a project for the PrAC, for this pollinator garden. I think it's a very good idea to get the community involved, and I'm sure we can get lots of hands to that. But I also know that a 200-foot rock wall with unqualified people trying to put that together will look like a unqualified rock wall. And whether you want to make it brick or something that will withstand the time, test the time, I think that we might need some professional help right there.
Definitely.
But we'd love to talk about what your expectations are and how we can get things involved together here.
Look forward to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, we have contractors too that I can get quotes for that, just the wall itself.
Are you
so.
talking like real rock or like Keystone
No,
type
it's
stuff?
gonna be like Manor Stone, like the stackable.
Concrete?
Yeah, they're 1 foot by 17
Yeah,
by
that's,
10, I
that can be
think.
done by volunteer. Once the footing's done, then it's pretty easy to
Right.
just stack this stuff, so.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Yep, Melissa?
Yeah. So this past month, the swimming pool has been closed, doing some maintenance projects. We are going to be opening up on Monday with some very clean water. We were able to complete our painting of the pool shell, which is what primarily took a while, just with the amount of time it takes for that paint to cure before refilling. We were also able to take some of our steam pipes that are along the deck and re-insulate those, and that's gonna help a lot with the air temperature on the pool deck and some of those controls, and should make it a lot more comfortable for the people on the deck, especially our lifeguards and swim coaches that are on there. And then we replaced our UV light filter, which helps essentially disinfect the water, and updated some parts of our chemical controller. So, and then our staff, we did a lot of work this past month with going through a lot of our storage areas throughout the pool and cleaning that up, going through a lot of record retention and just some of that, post-summer cleanup and organization from our camps and our concert series and getting everything clean and stored for the season. We are fully staffed for the swimming pool, super exciting, doing really well with that. And so we will have normal programming throughout the month of October. We also, as you saw on the calendar that Jared shared, we have a lot of events coming up in October. One of the events we're doing at the swimming pool, which is our annual swamp swim. and that's on Saturday, October 28th. And that's essentially, we set up the community room with a bunch of, we decorate it with Halloween decorations and do a bunch of games with the kids, and then we open up the swimming pool for people to swim. And we have 2 events that are happening at the Francis Ermatinger House this month. One of them is happening next Friday and Saturday, October 6th and 7th. That is a murder at the Ermatinger House. It's a history mystery event, essentially an escape room. And we have a few tickets left for that, for each of those nights. The following weekend, on Friday the 13th in October, we're doing an event called Friday Night Frights, and that is sold out. That is a partnership between us and the Stevens Crawford House and the Hive Social. It's going to be a tour of all those sites and essentially a lot of ghost stories and stuff like that happening in that evening. And then we have been working with Soul Flags Community Center, got a grant from the Arts Commission to implement a series of cultural events throughout this year. And so we are working with them as well as the school district and the library and some other community members to implement a series. So the first event that we're going to be doing is on Saturday, October 14th, and that is a Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. And then the next one that we're asking people to save the date for is on Saturday, November 19th. That is going to be a Diwali festival. And then I think that is the end of my update.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Cecily?
So our nutrition do this correctly so Zoom can hear me. Our nutrition program is growing significantly, which is exciting, but it is also always a sad thing in the world that we provide services, right? But what it tells me is that the hiring of our social services programmer that we had put into place in July was definitely necessary. So we've seen a 16% increase on Meals on Wheels alone. We are now serving 140 total clients. I do want to thank both of our social services staff, that's Shirley Ryan and Alex Cooker, for the amazing work that they do every day. They are incredibly busy from the time that we open to the time that we close, and then some, with all of the needs of the community that they're trying to meet. So doing a fabulous job. We're kicking off a very busy time in October. Many of you might know that it is Medicare open enrollment. So we'll have a multitude of Medicare presentations. We have everything from those that sell Medicare to provide information. They're more of a renter, of course. They come and they have information to share. They're not allowed to sell products in our building during our business hours, but they are allowed to give that information and kind of sell who they are. But most importantly, we'll actually have those that are just true advocates, those that are teachers, volunteers, just want to help people with that complicated process and the changes that come along with Medicare every year. Intentionally, we have decided to launch our Silver Fit, Active and Fit and Silver sneakers at our center in October to kind of align with that open enrollment period. And so what that means for our center is we're actually going to be providing that in our fitness room. This has formerly been a punch card system. You could purchase a membership, so to speak, a punch card for the ability to use that fitness room. And now this will provide those that maybe couldn't afford it otherwise and have that free in their Medicare benefit. So we're excited for that. We are growing our programming. So I had mentioned nutrition growing in numbers. It's also growing in days of service. This was a goal I talked about in a previous meeting, that we were only delivering 2 days per week, and most centers do more than that. We had never sort of reopened in Oregon City after COVID and after the pandemic. The Meals on Wheels program is designed to not just deliver that meal, but provide those reassurance checks for clients. And so starting October 16th, we'll be back up to 4 days per week, which is a very, very good Meals on Wheels program. So we're excited for that. I do want to say that we do still need volunteers. We're healthy, we're ready to go, but we always need Meals on Wheels drivers. So that would be our greatest volunteer need still. Staffing wise, we've got some exciting changes coming. We actually just hired a van driver. So this is our permanent driver for the Oregon City route. that position had been vacant for a short period of time due to our driver taking a different city position. And so Tony joined our team this week and is going to be taking off on that route, of course, as soon as he's trained and has all of his approvals. So that program has a lot of potential as well. We did hire a on-call interim driver, which was great. So that program didn't completely halt, but we did see it sort of take a few steps back. Transportation is the greatest unmet need for seniors in our area. So excited to have that back and running. We've got some exciting grants that have taken place. We've received a grant donation that started from the Home Orchard Education Center in August. We've seen that in the donation of fresh fruits. When we do a nutrition assessment for all of our clients, that is one of the questions we ask is, do you have the access or do you have in your diet fresh fruits and vegetables? And about 90% of them tell us that they do not. They're not receiving any of that. And so this is a really neat grant that we received. We are getting 75 to 100 pounds each week. It's mostly been apples and pears, and our clients are already raving about it and wondering where it's at if it's not being delivered on a certain day. So hearing great feedback from them. In addition, we just received a grant of fitness equipment, and that came from the Clackamette Community College Education and the foundation there. We were told when it was delivered, it was the largest grant that the foundation has ever given, so that was very exciting. That came in the form of 20 fitness balls, 20 fitness bands, 20 sets of weights, and a voice amplifier. We wanted that equipment because that was a barrier. We had many instructors interested in teaching programming, but not willing to, of course, haul all of this equipment back and forth. We've had classes before where we encourage our clients to bring their own weights and things, but when you do have a class, which is the majority of many fitness classes that require all of that equipment, that's a very difficult ask of our clients. And so very excited to have that, and we already have winter programming scheduled because of getting that, so very exciting. I think the last thing I'll mention is our reception reconfiguration project. So that was actually a project that had been approved in the previous biennium, and we saw that come to fruition recently. So Kyle will probably tell you more about that, but that's what we've got going on at the center.
Thanks, Cecily. Cal? So I've forgotten everything that Melissa mentioned, but I'll try not to repeat anything. There was some other electrical improvements at the pool that track down closure is great for the facilities team. Track down an electrical issue that had been going on for a decade that was servicing one of the 4 air handlers on the roof. UV filter going in, that is fantastic. We're really excited about that. Boiler, just basic maintenance. A valve was replaced on that is going to alleviate some of the shut-off issues that we've had in the past. It allowed us to do our permit test with the shutdown, so we were able to get to that. Supply line was repaired that had a leak in it. Drain line that was totally corroded was replaced, so that is exciting for me. Just having some free time in there. All the shower timers were replaced and shut-off valves put in at each shower head, so we don't have to shut off all the water supply to the entire room to make any changes on that. So already excited about being able to work on that. Here at City Hall, more deferred maintenance they were able to do. We replaced 2 of the rooftop HVAC units as part of our schedule to keep things moving. Saying all the things that are part of the deferred maintenance that we're able to get to on schedule. We like that. At Pioneer, in 1 week, we lost the freezer, which is a very important part of the Meals on Wheels. of being able to store things for the longer term, and then also lost the steamer, which is very important for the day-to-day lunch service. Both of them were brought back as soon as possible, but really have to hand it to Cecily's staff, especially Angela, of just being able to figure out new ways to do things and keep going. And so thanks to the staff for making that able to happen. Work that we'd like to do, and Kendall and I have talked about this, there might be another potential tour in our future that we've got a lot of issues at End of Oregon Trail. The budget was not approved for some deferred maintenance projects. It's happened quite a few times in the past, and we've got some major HVAC issues, some major decking that has hit the point of safety. The siding has long been an issue. Melissa and I have talked about the ticket office. We have some pest control concerns that I think I'm just going to have to go forward with no matter what. And I would love to power wash those hoops if you've been on site. I don't like seeing them in that state. And so I think that will be a future item for Kendall to work out for a field trip for us.
Definitely. As you know, the End of the Oregon Trail is one of our big moves where it needs a master plan and it needs a business plan. Currently, over probably the past 12 years, there's been repairs that have needed to happen at that site that weren't funded. And now we're at a critical point in the life of that facility where there needs to be a plan, there needs to be some decisions made in regards to funding moving forward. So I think it's really important as representatives of the community, advocates for PrAC, that we set aside some time to actually go through the facility, get a tour of the facility, have Kyle speak to some of the issues that he's facing right now and some of the things that need immediate attention. So as we continue to move forward to come up with the plan for that facility, you're informed and you can also speak to that, whether it be with community members, but also the city commission.
So what are those hoops made of anyway? Aluminum or metal or?
Oh, it's a steel.
Steel?
Yeah.
Mhm. And it just needs a new paint job beyond cleaning.
I think just the power washing would do a major brightening. Paint is flaking, and so structurally it's okay. I don't think it's in need of a paint job to save it for corrosion purposes, but just the paint job, just the power washing, mainly to remove growth from a lichen algae.
Mm-hmm.
It's got all of them growing on it.
A good facelift.
And that ends our update.
All right. Great, thank you, everybody. I appreciate your reports. I did have two questions for you, Brandon, if you have 1 second. One was, do we charge to discharge in the park, Clackamette?
Yes, we charge, it's $5 at the dump station.
All right, okay. Yeah, it looks like that's one of the most popular places in the park.
It is, it's a happening area.
Mm-hmm. And then where are the bike racks at the end of the Oregon Trail? You were saying on a deck?
Oh, no, those are the picnic tables. I was just,
Oh, all right.
being funny a little bit about her bike rack was taking forever in the ADA.
Are there any bike racks?
Yes.
Yes.
There are. So right next to the ticket booth, we have a piece of art, looks like a wagon wheel, and and kind of a recycle center.
Okay, that's it.
That's a bike rack area, and then up above on the main platform by the buildings.
All right, it functions better as a piece of art than a bike rack. I tried locking a bike up there, and when there's more than one bike anywhere close to that, it's very difficult to get another one on there. So I appreciate the alternative site there. Okay. Okay. So moving on. The next thing is member reports, and this is where if any of the committee members have visited a park and seen the issue you want to bring up, it'd be a good time to talk about it. I do have something that I'd like to do, is that one of the things is that we have a future agenda item here that is a big, long list of about 20 things that have been promised to talk about for the last years and years that I've been on this board. And I would like a survey done with all of these items that are on this list, including a few more, and rank them in order of interest and what we could go ahead and talk and address instead of just keeping them on this list. And then potentially talk about the top one each meeting that we do sit down and discuss. Because right now, this list has not gone anywhere for the past year and a half. So it'd be nice to see.
Well, we tend to put items on there that some that we've already covered to keep track. And then new items that have come up, we do put on that list. We can start with a fresh list that the committee can provide items on that they would like to see and do a ranking of those items, and we can work off of a new list. This list is carried over from the 3 years I've been here. My predecessor started to help keep track of topics that we've discussed. Some of the things can be removed off of the list because we've discussed it, and we don't have any intention of bringing it back for any reason. But there's nothing stopping us from starting with the clean slate based on maybe some of the information that's coming out of the Parks Master Plan, the Clackamette Park Master Plan, some of these projects, and working off of a new list.
So, with all that said, Corey, can you send out a fresh list to everybody and just have some way that we could rank them as far as what items that we think are most important to go ahead and talk about? Okay, does this sound like a good idea, the rest of the committee here? I mean, there's some discussion I'd like to have here.
I'm kind of was thinking, because if you don't mind.
No, yeah.
That I think we've lost track of our goals, and because that's one of the things I was trying to find in old minutes, and I think we started to talk about them in January or so, and I think they just kind of, we've lost track of them. At least I feel like we've lost track of them.
Oh, I think so too.
And so, maybe some of these would actually be more relevant in a goal type of thing, which then kind of leads me to my next thing, which was the PRAC report that went to the council or the commission. Really, in my opinion, wasn't a PRAC report. It was a departmental update type of thing. And so if we were to have like a meaningful report to the commission, it would be probably based on maybe some of our goals and some of the accomplishments of PRAC itself, and not kind of riding on the coattails of staff.
Well, I feel that's why you guys give a great presentation as far as what an update is in your departments, and I think that's fantastic. But in order for us to exist as a PRAC committee and actually feel like we accomplished something, it'd be really nice to kind of divide that up a little bit more and make a goal out of what we want to work on, and then actually work on a project, which would be kind of nice instead of just sit up here and listen to reports. So
Let me make a comment that Kendall and I had a conversation after that presentation to have this very kind of a discussion. And I think we came to an agreement that we would begin next year, well in advance of the time of that report needing to be presented, to work together to, obviously, we're going to have some activities, things that we have done. I mean, I don't mind, I think it's a good mix to present some of the items that, you know, that are obviously part of the facilities. I think those are important to have there, but also have things that were pertinent to things we've done. And I think Kendall, correct me if I'm wrong, but that you agreed and
Yes,
I concurred that
definitely.
we'd get on that a little bit earlier.
Yep.
Which would allow us then to make that report something meaningful both to us and to the commission. The one thing that was, and maybe it was a function of the report, and partly because I said all the questions had to go to Kendall, but we didn't get one question. You know, we didn't have, I mean, it's the parks, we had an entire parks program, which is pretty important here in Oregon City. It's big, it's large, it's got lots of tentacles to it. And we had not one question that I recall came from a city commission. Now, maybe they just were tired of hearing my voice, or they didn't want to ask Kendall the questions or whatever, but it was a bit disconcerting to me that we didn't at least get one. In fact, I even threw a little hook out there and they still didn't bite. And so I think we need to make that thing a little more than what it certainly was that I saw this time. It was a good, not taking nothing away from the items that were in it. We just got to find a way to meld it into something that's ours as a prac, things we're doing, and things that the program and staff and facilities are doing. You mix those together, I think we'll have a better report, and I'll bet you I can get a question the next time after that.
Well, I think, I mean, and that would be kind of the value of having, you know, kind of a discussion of our goals, and our goals probably should be part of that report so that the commission gets an opportunity to weigh in on maybe if we have some weird goal, they're going, well, wait, we don't want you working on that. We'd rather have you focus on, you know, on that. So, I mean, so that's probably where you're gonna get questions. I mean, and the staff reports, I think, they get those every month. And so there was nothing new, I don't think, to the commission. So I'm guessing that might be why you didn't generate a lot of questions, because it was stuff that they're familiar with, and they know it's ongoing. But it was really a function of staff, and it wasn't, I mean, I didn't feel like.
Yep, it's that you guys are the professionals, you know how to run your departments, which is fantastic. But you've got to harness this group here of volunteers that really want to make a difference. And I think that by working on a list, we could run it by you guys to see, is this a valid project for your specific department? Or is it something that we're just blowing smoke around? Let's do something productive.
I'd say at our next October meeting, we utilize that meeting to talk about what your goals are moving forward, what's your vision moving forward. And we've outlined some areas where we need your support going into this next year as well. And then we can also have some conversations around different things that we want to kind of outline for upcoming meetings and agendas, and really do some strategic planning for how we're going to interact, how we can provide support, and how you can make the greatest impact moving forward.
Well, the key, in my opinion, is that, you know, we recognize, at least I recognize that as a committee, you know, our role is advisory. But we have the ability to provide that advice and provide support. And when we need to feel like we're useful, we need to be put in a position to be able to use some of those tools. You know, I'm not worth much up here, but there's a lot of these other people are. And there's a lot can be done. And I think we can be an asset rather than, you know, just attending meetings, frankly.
So if you guys have ideas on what this committee should be doing, we'd like to hear that also. I mean, here, there's a big list that's been going on forever that we haven't done anything to. It helps to focus energies, and we want to work all in the same direction, and, you know, you got to leverage, we got to leverage you and vice versa. So let's make it work.
I'd just say that, you know, we have commission goals that come out. I think that when we have the commission goals that are out, Pracs looking at their goals, are we going to be symbiotic with those? And making sure that along with all of those goals, that we're also looking at what we have in our approved budget and what we're casting forward for the biennium, which is 2 years. Along with that, what's our future forecast that we're driving towards that you guys can help advocate towards in terms of funding or projects or next steps? So that would be my 2 cents for what it's worth.
That's a great one. Does the city have a central grant writer that goes ahead and searches for these things? No?
No. It's all these people.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, well, there's an opportunity, okay? So that's my part. Anybody else here?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, this sounds kind of encouraging or interesting, so I would definitely be kind of excited to kind of talk about some of our goals and kind of work on them.
Yep.
And then I think too, it also helps us advocate if we have a little bit more than a staff report just to go off of, because we've not really been involved in anything, so it's kind of like, well, you know, why? Just because I've been handed a report doesn't necessarily make me want to advocate. I mean, I kind of would rather be involved a little bit more and have a deeper understanding of kind of what's going on. The SDCs is a classic example of, if, you know, once you kind of understand, and there's a lot of policy decisions that we should be able to make recommendations on, kind of, and how that can be affected. And that's one that's huge, because that's, if the community and everybody understands kind of how those fees came above, instead of, well, because we hired a consultant, you know, I think that having the community committees weighing in on a lot of this stuff is going to make them a lot easier to kind of wade their way through the process.
And like, one of the things I would like to hear more about is the program that Jerry Herman and Jackie Hanman Williams came and talked about, the Park Place Park, and the trail that wanted, you know, that was going to go in, and I haven't heard anything since.
That is just in the beginning stages. Brandon met with them and spoke to Jerry, and he's been providing some direction on next steps. That has not really kicked off as of yet. There's some things that need to happen before that's going to be able to move forward.
I know it takes a lot of time and the wheels move slowly, but let's not lose track of it. And, you know, that's one thing I want to see on our future agenda item. It's not on there, but that needs to be one of those new things that's added to that list.
So how can we have a productive October meeting? I mean, is it each of us come up with a wish list of future projects? You guys come up with your things. Gosh, what one or two things that would work if we could help you do something as a volunteer advisory? I mean, or at least we could rally all of our friends to help volunteer or something, doing something. So it should be all out there to be discussed at least.
Yeah, and I think it can be twofold. We can share some of the ways where we feel like you can provide support to us, and then you can also provide some input on some projects, and we can have some discussions about goals, and we can build a framework to where we can kind of narrow down what your goals are going to be, what items you want to have brought back for additional discussion, and work off of that.
Yeah, I think that would be good, and I know from at least my perspective, I'm not interested in coming up with a bunch of projects for staff to do. You know, I don't think that,
That's not our role.
No,
Our role-
it's not. And so I just wanna make sure
Our role is
that-
to advise you on the things that you need to do to get your job done. Our role is to advise and assist and help. We need to remember that.
Right.
But at the same time, we need things to advise on, and we need things to be able to participate in. And that way, then we can work together to make it
well, and
happen.
then advising on policy is really the main,
Yeah.
probably the main thing that your community groups can advise on. I mean, I don't care to weigh in on how tall the grass should be mowed or frequencies of, you know, some of those things. It's all
I wanted to
interesting.
weigh in on those trees.
You know, well, that's true, but
Like, I have strong opinions on that. So, I mean, I think it would be helpful to have, outside the construct of what we have to do within this meeting, of PrAC, if they'd like to meet, where it's not all of Parks and Rec. If we would like to talk about our goals, I think it would be helpful to not have to meet in here and have a conversation amongst us. What are our goals? What are we trying to achieve? And then have a more organized construct to bring to everybody here, so we're not holding everyone here on what they have, or bring it to Kendall that's there.
Have like a work session.
Work session, you know, we go to brewery, we, you know, whatever. Something like that, of a work session where we meet up in a more informal basis, where we don't have to second a conversation, where we can just speak freely on the goals, and then we bring our organized thoughts here to this meeting as a more focused structure.
unfortunately, I don't know that we can do that
Okay.
because of the public meeting.
Public meetings law allow that.
You have to, I mean, there's probably a different forum or a different place, you know, like even meeting in a park versus, you know, something like that. But we have to be kind of aware of the, you know, it has to be noticed, and it has to be, once you kind of get to a quorum. I think those rules do apply to us as well.
I think so, but I'll double check.
Okay.
If not, then I think, yeah, that would be great.
Corner 14 has a nice
Well,
little.
If not, look out.
Well, it's just one of those things, because then if it, you get a violation, then it's just another pain that then staff has to unravel. What did you let those guys do?
No, that would really help. Okay. Very good. Anybody else? Tim? We're all set? So, there's nothing else to talk about except October 26th, we'll be meeting again, and meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to break the rules.
Bye, Emily. Thanks for